The Atomos Ninja V and the AtomXCast were an integral part of my YouTube studio, and now, being back, I actually checked it out again, and I was absolutely surprised how much the Atomos company has put into the Ninja V. It is an absolutely stunning development to see how this ecosystem is growing and growing from basically a monitor with recording capabilities to now being a full-featured production workflow. This is obviously something that has to do with the AtomXCast as well, and that is something that I want to feature toward the end of the video. But first, I want to mention a couple of the other firmware upgrades and new devices and ways that you can work with the Atomos Ninja V. Now, of course, there's the time-lapse feature, which I talked about recently in another video, which you will obviously find linked in the description down below, so that's not something that I'm going to go into in this video. The other thing where there are constantly new firmware upgrades are the raw capabilities of the Ninja V, supporting more and more cameras to record their respective codecs into the ProRes RAW format. So basically, Atomos is making the Ninja V and the family of products around it always compatible with the latest cameras that are coming out. Now though, there are also a huge bunch of features that have nothing to do with the raw capabilities of this recorder, but much more with the expansion packs, with the ways that this thing can now connect to the internet and do so much more. Now, this specific category that I want to cover here is basically connecting the Atomos Ninja V and its family of products to the internet or to a local network. To do so, you obviously need a package or an extension for the Atomos Ninja V, but there are also other recorder monitors that already have these things built in. So you might want to check those out if the features that I'm going to talk about in just a moment are relevant to you. Generally, all of these network adapters or devices give you a way to connect either to a wireless network or connect via Ethernet to a network of your choice, and by extension also connect directly to the internet. Because then these recorders actually can instantly record and upload a proxy file to an internet server. There's also the option that these devices actually can stream the video signal directly to a control panel or a control server, and then someone else can actually be completely off premises and control a live stream which has overlays, titles, and transitions between different cameras, and can stream that directly to YouTube or other live streaming platforms. This in itself makes this package with the recorders that are connected to the internet directly a really interesting project for example, live streaming situations where you don't want to have all these cables around. However, one thing for sure is that you need a proper internet connection to handle all this upload. Now, of course, they're not going to upload ProRes at all. That is something that is obviously recorded directly on the SSD drives, so you have that original quality right there. What is uploaded is usually a scaled down either proxy file or a scaled down in resolution or in terms of the bitrate or in terms of the format, like for example recording or uploading in H.265, so that the internet connection is not strained all too much and that it is a stable way of uploading all of this media. One thing that I heard where, for example, the feature to upload proxy files or lower resolution files was used was at the Canne Film Festival. Basically, they had a couple of teams running around with cameras that were all connected directly to the internet with something like an Atomos Ninja V with the wireless connection kit, and the uploading was happening while they were shooting. And then they had a control room where someone was sitting and receiving all of this media, and they were able to basically instantaneously create social media content and publish within the hour. This obviously is much harder to do if you have all the media on the SSD, and then you have to bring that to a central hub, and from there they can then produce the media and obviously also publish it to the internet or any other places. I think that these new ways of working together, bringing the media together in one place, is absolutely stunning, and it is a very interesting way to do more and more workflows in this kind of like camera direct to cloud connection. Now, another thing, if you feel like you would be getting stuck in the Atomos Cloud and you can't really use the video files any other way, that is actually not going to be the case. Atomos actually gives you a way that you can cut the videos in the online platform, and you can also export them there and all of these things. But then you can also export a project file, for example, for DaVinci or for Premiere Pro or any other NLE. and then you can continue editing on your local machine, for example, also directly with the SSD drives and the ProRes media that you recorded directly on here. But that, of course, is then later on. Because, of course, with the media that already was uploaded, the proxy files, you could already start the edit. You could show the client something that much quicker and have someone basically do a rough cut whilst you're still on set and you're still working with the crew to see how it's working out and all of these things without actually having to take out the media, bringing it over to the editing workstation, doing the rough cut and such things. So that's one huge development that Atomos is doing. You have the proxy upload to the cloud, basically a camera direct to cloud upload with Frame.io features inbuilt and an online editing suite where you can already cut all of this video material. Then you also have the ability to basically stream camera to cloud, and you have an online way of actually switching between camera perspectives, adding overlays and titles. So you have a completely remote, basically live streaming studio, which you can basically run from the camera to the cloud and have someone else that is on a different location basically run the live stream. Then there's also intercom features built in, so you can actually use the connectors on the device basically to also talk back to, for example, a producer. So you have a headphone plug and you have a microphone plug, and you can then use those with multiple of the Atomos recorders and cameras, of course. And then these devices also feature wireless timecode, which is really cool because that way you don't really have to jam sync or resync anything, as long as everything is in the same timecode system. And then you have the ability to basically have remote synchronization of all your cameras. And there are also these adapters that you can use, for example, for a Zoom F6 to also be in that wireless jam synced network of timecode synchronization. This is all of the things that you can do with these wireless connection things, and obviously also with still the Atomos Ninja V, despite that device being like 5 years old or something like that. It is still getting packed with these firmware upgrades. And there's, of course, also the expansion kits, the AtomX modules, like the AtomXCast also is one. And that is the thing that I want to talk about next, because this also got a bunch of firmware upgrades since its first release. And you can see I have it set up the way that currently I can see both of these cameras right here on my little monitor. I have it in the multi-view. And now this is not just something that is here on the hardware, which it previously basically was, and then you can use it as a webcam on your computer via the UVC module or UVC connection. And this now has a program that runs on macOS as a remote control for the AtomXCast. And what you can do here, you can actually set it to live. And now you can see right now, I see the camera connection from here. However, what I do not get is a live feed of all of the cameras on the computer. I do have the option to go to color and then preview all. However, there, as you can see, I have to refresh this manually, and it will actually just send basically one screenshot to the computer. And whenever you see a live feed like you're doing right here, then you're seeing basically the webcam signal that the device is sending to the computer as its one thing. And so now the things that you can do with this program is actually you can see what is going on by having it connected via USB-C, and it shows you what you would be also seeing in Zoom or in OBS or wherever you're connecting this signal to. But you can also control things right here on the screen. Like, for example, I could make it so that it follows the audio for whichever camera is activated. So I can switch here, and you can see here that the microphone will also switch with it because those are connected. Now, generally speaking, whenever I was using a setup like this, I would either have the microphone connected to the mic or line in port of the Atomos itself, or I have the microphone or like the one main microphone connected to one of the cameras, and then I would only use that specific microphone and I would have that locked in. Now though, I can actually switch the camera perspectives from the computer. I can also choose whether or not any of the cameras should be active as a picture-in-picture. Like you can see right now, there's no picture-in-picture. Now, if I want to, I can enable this picture-in-picture, and you see this actually now showed up on the top right. I also can change the settings that are given on the device itself as well. I can change the position of the picture-in-picture. I can change the size to be a little smaller or a bit of a bigger one. And I also can change how things should fade between the two camera perspectives in my case. So now whenever I switch, you can see there's actually this dip to white. And of course, you can also change the color to a dip to black. However, to be honest, I always preferred if it's just cutting in between anyways. There's no fade feature as it stands right now with the AtomXCast. What you can do is you can fade out the video, and now you can see there's no audio signal and there's no video signal. So this basically just blacks out the camera whenever there is something that you don't want on screen and you just need like a power plug pull. There's obviously also the option to no longer be live, and then you can basically just disable the camera completely and all of those things. Then we can drill down into the settings a little bit more. We have the inputs itself. This is basically just being able to switch between the inputs, and I can also see what the settings are on the individual inputs. Like for example, right now we have on camera 1, it's an HD signal in full HD, 29.97 frames per second, but camera 2 is actually sending 60 frames per second and a full HD signal as well. Whether there are graphics or not is also displayed, and then you also have the information if there's an active LUT on any given camera. And the LUTs are actually something that I will talk about in a second, because there is actually a massive change with this that can actually help you make all of the cameras look the same in terms of their colors. So that's a really interesting thing that they built in here, and I wish the ATEM Mini, for example, would have a feature like that. Now, going down in the menu, you have the output, and there, of course, you can see what's currently being output on the cast. So as you can see, you have a projection rate of full HD at 60 frames per second. Then the stream output frame rate is 1080p at 29.97. And then we have the monitor output, so whatever the HDMI connected monitor should be seeing. And there you can see I can make it either the program, preview, or multi-view, and then whatever I want to record. So in this case, I could set it to full HD, 29.97 frames per second, and I can choose the codec between ProRes and Avid DNx HD, and then of course also how my bitrate should be happening. ProRes 422 LT has always been my choice in this case. And you can choose whether you want to have a clean signal or if you want the cast program. And I think in this case, the cast versus clean basically means if there should be the overlays on top of everything, or if you just want the camera signals to be recorded before the overlays are applied. And then going down, you actually have the menu for the overlays, and here you can see you can actually position the overlays, you can have different presets for the overlays, and then of course you can also load the graphics into the different slots on the device so that they are available right here as well, and I can kind of like control how or which of the presets should be active and how I want those to basically be applied. And then down in the last bit, we have colors. And this, I think, is actually one of the most interesting aspects of this program, because this is something that you cannot do on the device itself. So basically here you have the option for the preview all, and you can just refresh, and then you can see how all of the cameras currently look with this kind of like a screenshot. Then you have the input color setup. So right now we are looking at the input number 1. Then we could also look at input number 2. However, again, whenever you do this, it actually also switches on the switcher. So be aware of that. But what we can do here is on the settings that are active on this input, I can actually change which LUT file I would load from my computer. I can change whether the camera is like a Rec 2100 or a Canon camera and so on. So like I can make all of these settings, but those are still an option on the device itself, as well as applying a LUT. But what's not an option is going into camera matching, and here you actually can match cameras in terms of their color to each other. And to do the color matching, you basically define the adjust source, so which one would you like to apply a LUT to, that's on the left side, and then we want to match that to the right-hand side. And now you basically tell the computer or the AI which areas should be similar in color. So in my case, for example, I can go in and say, I would like this wall here to be one of the points, so that's about there. Then I also have this area right here, which is kind of like the shadow where the laptop stands, and I can click about there. And now I have these 2 points, and then I can change the laptop itself and say this should probably match about here. And now with that, we basically have a bit of a adjusted image in terms of its colors, and I now can apply this. And with the apply button being pressed, it now sends a generated LUT directly onto the device and applies it to that camera perspective. And it actually is quite remarkable how similar these now look in terms of their colors when I switch between these two, and like, I'm just blown away. All of this Atomos basically was able to do with firmware updates to the AtomXCast as well as the Atomos Ninja V and the AtomXCast application for macOS. Now, all of this has actually been also a free upgrade. And I'm just blown away as to what they were able to achieve here, how they're able to kind of like package more and more into this device, which again, in terms of the baseline, has been already on the market for about 5 years. And with all the camera to cloud, as well as the live streaming direct to cloud, all of these things, Atomos is really carving out an interesting workflow for specific niches and for specific projects. Now, with all of these advancements and developments of the Atomos Ninja V and the AtomXCast, I personally would still prefer to have, let's say, an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO as my main live streaming device if I were to build a full-on live streaming studio. The green screening and the overlays, as well as the features like the transitions, and of course also the options in terms of the picture-in-picture to have different forms, to be round, to be like just all in all that much more capable, that still is something that this device has to strive toward. However, I think that it's great that there is at least competition on the market for different options that you might want to choose for your setup. If this video was helpful or interesting for you, please give it a thumbs up. That's always greatly appreciated. And maybe one of the other videos up here is interesting to you to watch next. With all that said, I hope you have an amazing day. Make it your life, and I'll see you in one of my other videos. Ciao, ciao.